No one expected the confirmation to arrive like this. Not after 10 years of calculated silence, careful deflections, and interviews engineered to reveal nothing at all. For more than a decade, Sam Heughan and Caitriona Balfe existed under relentless scrutiny, observed by millions who sensed an unspoken truth, only to be repeatedly told they were imagining it. And yet, when the confirmation finally surfaced, it wasn't dramatic or romantic. It was restrained, deliberate, and irreversible. What stunned the public wasn't only the acknowledgement itself, but its timing. After years of denial, after rumors dismissed as fanfiction and obsession, the silence simply stopped. There was no emotional statement to cushion the impact, no carefully worded explanation to guide interpretation. The absence of resistance became the loudest admission of all. For years, their connection occupied a strange gray zone. Too intense to be brushed off as professional chemistry, yet too controlled to be openly named. Fans noticed it early, not in scripted scenes, but in unscripted moments. The mirroring of body language. The way they finished each other's thoughts. The instinctive reactions when one of them was under pressure. In interviews, their answers aligned with uncanny precision. Whenever questions veered toward personal territory, both retreated into the same neutral phrasing, as if following an unspoken rulebook. Industry observers began to suspect this wasn't coincidence, but coordination. And in television, coordination at that level rarely exists without purpose. Over time, small inconsistencies accumulated. Periods when both vanished from social media simultaneously, returning weeks later without explanation. Travel schedules that overlapped too neatly, yet never produced shared photos. Public events where they arrived separately and left separately, but were consistently reported by witnesses to be nearby throughout. None of these details proved anything on their own. Together, they formed a pattern that refused to disappear. Fans argued endlessly, dividing into believers and skeptics, while Sam and Caitriona maintained the same line year after year. Just friends. Like family. Nothing more. What many didn't realize was how deliberate that position was. According to those close to the production, unspoken boundaries were established from the very beginning. A public relationship between the show's two leads would have altered the entire marketing strategy. It would have shifted attention away from the story on screen and toward the people behind it. As Outlander grew into a global phenomenon, the stakes only increased. Sam Heughan's public image was carefully curated, charismatic, emotionally accessible, unattached, and enigmatic. Caitriona Balfe, meanwhile, was positioned as fiercely private, career-driven, and resistant to tabloid narratives. A confirmed relationship would have dismantled both images overnight. So the silence endured, not because there was nothing to say, but because saying it carried consequences. Contracts, endorsements, and audience expectations depended on a fragile illusion remaining intact. And illusions, once broken, cannot be rebuilt. What changed wasn't just circumstance, but leverage. As the series moved toward its final chapters, the professional risk began to shrink. The machinery that once demanded discretion lost its grip. According to one anonymous source connected to the show, the agreement to remain silent had always been conditional, never permanent. When the confirmation finally emerged, it wasn't framed as a confession. It felt more like an acknowledgement of something already dissected beyond exhaustion. There was no attempt to reclaim control of the narrative, no effort to redirect attention. That lack of defense spoke volumes. The reaction was immediate and divided. Some fans felt vindicated, convinced their instincts had been right all along. Others felt unsettled, questioning whether they had been deliberately misled. And a quieter group asked the most uncomfortable question of all: if this was real, why was it hidden for so long? Because after 10 years of silence, the truth doesn't arrive as celebration. It arrives as disruption. As the story continued to unfold, it became clear that the confirmation itself was only the surface. The reasons behind the silence, and the cost of breaking it, were far more revealing than the relationship ever could be. Multiple industry sources suggested the decision to stay quiet was never purely personal. It was shaped by contracts, branding strategies, and an unspoken understanding that certain truths were inconvenient to the business surrounding Outlander. Love wasn't the problem, visibility was. For years, Sam's unattached image fueled fan devotion and commercial appeal. Caitriona carried a different weight, protecting her privacy in an industry that profits from intrusion. Behind the scenes, that imbalance created pressure rarely visible to the public. Friends were described as misdirection. Schedules became tools of separation. Emotional honesty was postponed in favor of professional stability. According to one insider, there were moments when stepping away felt easier than continuing the performance. But each time the idea of going public surfaced, the same risks returned. What ultimately tipped the balance wasn't a sudden surge of courage, but exhaustion. After a decade of managing every gesture, every answer, every public appearance, the effort became unsustainable. The confirmation didn't arrive as a declaration of joy, but as a refusal to keep sustaining an illusion. Once the silence broke, the fallout was swift. Media outlets revisited years of archived interviews, re-examining old clips with renewed suspicion. Statements once dismissed as playful now carried different weight. Every pause, every smile, every deflection was reinterpreted. For some fans, this re-examination felt like closure. For others, it created discomfort. The realization that truth may have been deliberately withheld raised questions about authenticity, trust, and the boundaries between performers and their audience. Even within the industry, the response was uneasy. Executives quietly acknowledged that the strategy had worked, but at a cost. The longer a secret is kept, the more volatile its reveal becomes. When it finally surfaces, it doesn't settle curiosity. It amplifies it. Why now, after 10 years, when silence had become routine? Insiders point to the nearing end of shared obligations. With fewer contracts enforcing a specific image, honesty finally became less risky than concealment. The confirmation didn't rewrite the past. It reframed it. Moments once seen as coincidence now appear calculated. Distances once interpreted as emotional caution may have been professional necessity. The line between choice and obligation grows harder to define. What remains unclear is what this confirmation truly represents. Is it the beginning of openness, or the closing acknowledgement of something that already endured its hardest years in silence? After so long spent protecting a secret, visibility can feel more like exposure than freedom. In the end, this story isn't just about Sam Heughan and Caitriona Balfe. It's about modern celebrity itself, about how performance extends beyond the screen, how relationships become liabilities, and how truth is often negotiated rather than spoken. The confirmation answered one question, but it opened many more. And as the dust settles, one thing is undeniable: the most revealing part of this story was never the relationship. It was the silence, and what it took to finally break it.